Hi, Norma. How are you?
How I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good, very good. It's so good to see you.
Yes, and so you have a lot of fans, and I've been asking around in my company. Okay, so what should we ask the good doctor? What do we need to know? And I think there were two desperate calls for one, obviously, with the stress of our times and this year in this country, especially with an election and with all sorts of turmoil. Um, there's a lot of concern about how to handle it, how to handle communication with other people, the fear of expressing an opinion, the fear of getting into an argument with a friend, the fear of just communicating, and which for me, I've never seen this before where there's so much stress about um, just expressing opinions. So I think that that's one big one. And I have a lot of young people here who I'm sure would be interested in that too. And of course I am. And then the other one is nobody can sleep. And so uh, we have a lot of ideas about sleep in my book. I wrote about sleep, but I would be interested, as we go through this to hear your thoughts about sleep and stress. And I'm sure you've had that conversation many times before. So we look forward to, so those are the two. And I think they both require several hours each. But if we could uh, just hear your thoughts and maybe let's start with whichever one you like. I'm going to leave it in your hands.
I think the first one probably because sleep is the second one. Sleep is one of those activities which is uh, active yet passive. So you can't force yourself to sleep. The harder you try, the less it's likely to come. But you can do a lot of active things about how you understand the world, how you relate with people, how you handle your mind. And if you are better at the first one, then sleep is easier to come. So probably addressing the first one might be better.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
So,
going to ask
yeah.
a more
So, no,
specific question.
basically, I think number one, um, we can see that there's a lot of very passionate convictions to beliefs. And I think uh, the media has such a big part in our anxiety, and some people watch one station all the time or listen to one source all the time and have sort of a doctrine they believe in. Some people listen to everything and are a nervous wreck, and other people have their opposite convictions. And it seems to me that social media allows for um, people to communicate in very harsh ways like never before, and sometimes hurtful. Even if you agree with what they're saying, sometimes the way it's communicated could sound extremely harsh. But when people are face to face and they know each other and they have different belief systems coming from whatever information they receive and they don't agree, there seems to also be a rivalry. And I think the protests now and tomorrow it'll be something else and the election will be another thing. So it isn't specifically one thing. It's just the tone of this time that is very, very, very unusual for me as a 78-year-old to witness in this country. I've never seen this before. And I'm so concerned about young people who are attaching so much of their identity to how they interact with other people. So this is a big topic, and I'm going to let you just go on with it. And if I have any questions, I'll ask you along the way.
Sure. So I think it will help to understand uh, how our brains and minds operate, to understand why do we do what we do. And I think some of the things that almost every species struggles with, humans in particular, is a combination of fear, a combination of ignorance, a, a little bit of greed, and a little bit of ego. So those are the four big challenges. I fear that I will have no control. I fear that I will not be able to fulfill my life's purpose, whatever that is. I fear that my children will go hungry. I fear that if the other person wins, then I will not have access to resources, etc., etc. So I have the fear, which sometimes is excessive. The second one is greed, which is obvious. Greed is basically what leads us from haves to have lots. There is no amount that will satisfy us. So when I meet people, there's two groups of people: people who are content and people who are still hungry. And the right kind of hunger is good, when you are hungry for a wholesome meal. But after a wholesome meal and another meal, if you're still hungry for, dessert, and after that another dessert, then you just plump up, emotionally, materially, you get bloated. So, and greed of one person hurts another person. So that's the challenge. So greed is not innocuous and greed is not good. The third challenge is ignorance about what is right for us. Ignorance that what is right for you is actually right for me also. Ignorance that none of us are completely correct. And everybody has a partial truth, no matter how wrong they may seem. So ignorance is also being ignorant about our ignorance. The whole idea of being confident without not knowing, which is very, very common these days. People answer questions as if they exactly know the answer, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this
Right.
person saying? So that is the third challenge. And the fourth challenge is ego. Ego is as in, even though I know my truth is wrong, because I said it, I'm going to double down and triple down and quadruple down. Just because I cannot be wrong. Just because I said it, it has to be right. I'll move the planet to make sure what I uttered from my mouth. And that ego stops us from listening to anybody else, and it perpetuates our fear, greed, and ignorance. So that is the default state of many of us. That is the default state in which we had to survive in the treacherous worlds of the past. We were very tribal then. If you see any of the animal videos of lions hunting, that's pretty much the fear, the greed, the ignorance, and the ego. That is what plays out. or in a pack of dogs or hyenas. So there's some wisdom there too. So I think I think those are the predispositions which are hosted by the lower part of our brain, the limbic circuitry of the brain. And the more we use it, the stronger it gets. Because whichever part of the brain you're using more, if you're using compassion part of the brain, that becomes stronger. If you're using fear part of the brain, that becomes stronger. And we know this from multiple research studies. And unfortunately, in the world that is today, we are using the fear machinery more. So I like to take a step back, and when I see people who you see, okay, there's fear speaking here, or you see there's ego speaking here. I try not to judge people. I try to feel like, okay, they are behaving like an average human being would be behaving under stress. And stress multiplies all this. When we are stressed, when we are feeling vulnerable, our higher cortical brain, because there's too much adrenaline or norepinephrine in the brain, it basically knocks out our higher cortical brain. We stop being the sage that we are destined to be. Uh, I'm very optimistic, Norma. We will all be sages in a
Yeah.
far away future that I don't, you and I will not be there as we are right now, but hopefully we'll get to experience that. And I sort of keep that hope and keep that belief, because historically truth has always prevailed on the planet. It has never been that falsehood has prevailed. Truth has always prevailed. So it'll happen eventually. So you look at people with that non-judgment, and I personally assume that the other person has a partial truth. So when they say something which makes no sense, I try to get to that partial truth. I try to preserve my compassion. I try to preserve my validation. I try to see the fear where they are coming from. Sometimes try to see the ignorance. And I'm doing this all without judgment. I'm not standing on a pedestal judging them. So now the advantage of looking at people that way, including your own teenager, with whom I just had a nice discussion about her driving 80 miles, and you're so they. What happens? The beauty is that when you approach, never does. And tribe A never connects tribe B's revenge with their original assault. So tribe A says, oh, tribe B took disproportionate revenge. So tribe A counterattacks. And then for the next 500 years, they are fighting with each other because of this psychology. Your revenge never fully satisfies you. When someone takes revenge on you, you do not connect it with what you initially did, which may have been sometimes unknowingly. So, so we need a lot of wisdom, a lot of love, a lot of patience, and I think we need three things actually. We to counter those four adversities, or those four lower predispositions. One we need is virtue, our commitment to virtue. The second we need is freedom, our freedom to exercise our views, because if you get constrained, I get constrained, then because of fear, then it's not going to work. And three is we need faith. So I think with virtue, freedom, and faith, we can counter our greed, our ego, our ignorance, and our fear. That's going to take time.
I think the question I have is, and I want to preface this by saying that I am an optimist also about where we can go with this. But right now, I don't think I'm concerned about the way to go about it, because some of these issues almost have a life and death meaning to people, right? They're so passionately of the belief that their lives or the planet or everything will fall apart if what they want and need doesn't happen. And I have feelings like that too, like, oh my God, if this just keeps happening, what's, and I don't, and in some cases I feel like I have a solution, but who do I tell? And in other cases, I don't have a solution. And then we might listen to somebody on the radio or TV or in a podcast or whatever, expressing a completely different opinion, that even in listening to their opinion, I still feel the same way. And I feel forlorn that a solution can't be made by compromise or conversation or debate or discussion. I don't feel like that mechanism is in place anymore. And so I think that's the concern, that yes, and I agree with you. You have to be virtuous to um, not criticize or tell somebody they're wrong just because you think you're right. I mean, that's the craziest, to do that. But to make the conversation explosive, and you know that you can by just responding, is wrong. But then on the other hand, not being able to express ourselves is also not good. So, meditation is great, but there are certain times expressing yourself is important. But now, if it's something to do with things that happen in this country, 50% of the population are going to not agree with you, and the other 50 will agree with you. And whether we want to admit it or not, we'd like to know that other people agree with us, right? So it's a very complicated, rough time. Um, and I feel like we need tools or something to do to kind of give us balance and to give us fortitude to be able to go forward, even though we can't necessarily successfully have dialogue right now.
I completely hear you. And I think uh, this is not the first time it has been said that we are in particularly difficult times. And this is not the last time this is being said. The First World War, the financial crisis, economic collapse, the Second World War, the Vietnam War, pretty much we have had obviously the COVID and catastrophe after catastrophe, but we've always bounced back.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the forest. There's the forest fire, and then the forest comes
Yeah.
alive again. I was many, many years ago, I was in this city of Bhopal, India, when we had MIC gas tragedy, and it looked so bleak. It looked, the world has come to an end, that micro world. But now the city is absolutely thriving. So I think one of the important aspects, and that's where wisdom comes, is to change your time frame. In that, if you're expecting that everything will be all right tomorrow, that's not going to happen, because people's emotional intelligence evolves over a long period of time, and there's a lot of pain that happens, and gradually, if you look at the last several hundred years, people are becoming, we're not as savage as we were in the Middle Ages, right? We are better. But yes, we are in difficult times. We are in very difficult times, but we're better than where we were 50 years ago. And I completely agree with you. We need freedom of speech. We need to be able to communicate our concerns and our thoughts without fear of retribution of some kind. And it takes two to make a clap. You can't just clap with one hands. I think the reality is then you have to you have to almost feel like you are the adults in the room. And if they do not walk over to you, then you have to walk over to them in order for you to find a peaceful solution, just as you do with a child. I think we feel like two things. I think we feel like others, their stand is uh, hardier than it actually is. It's not. It does dissolve. It does melt. Like in Minnesota, day before yesterday, it was so thickly cloudy that you would think Seattle has come here. Like it's never gonna. The clouds will never go away. But it's absolutely bright and sunny today. So I believe in the goodness of mankind. I feel uh, everybody has a need for purpose. I think we have to, as mature, emotionally intelligent people, um, acknowledge the other people's concerns, show that we understand it, not try to correct them right away, and do the yes and. You say, no, no, you are wrong. No, I think I see the truth in what you are saying, but let's look at it also from a broader perspective. And at the end of the day, uh, what is best is what will help our planet's children to create a better world. So my my one of the main thoughts I have is to you have to expand your time horizon when things will change and things will be better. One, two is be prepared for ongoing challenges and chaos. The cat is out of the bag, unfortunately, with AI, with so much fake news and fake this and fake that. You don't know it's me talking right now. It could be my hologram for all you know.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Though I can stretch my cheeks and show that it is real me. But so there's so much fake everywhere, and there was a time when there was much more centralized development of technology, but now everybody has access to.
Mm.
I am told the amount of power in this computer, in this phone, is more than the entire computing power that NASA had when they landed the person on the moon. So that has increased an individual's capacity to inflict harm. So we have to develop more resilience in order for us to continue to thrive and not just sit on the bus, but be driving the bus. And I choose to do that. And my line for me is this: the more challenge I will see in the bigger world, the more positivity I will create in my little world. And so that's what I do. And the second thing I do is when I see news not to catastrophize. I see news to get inspired that there's so much more work I have to do. It's not a work of one lifetime. So I sort of feel it's almost like if you're a doctor and you know that, let's say there's pneumonia that can be treated and you've got unlimited antibiotics, you're like you're not happy to see people with pneumonia, but you're excited that you could help it. So uh, I wish we had the sages who have visited the planet in the past. I wish we had them today also, but we don't. As of now, at least we don't know. Maybe this challenge will inspire um, re-engagement of some really uh, wise and amazing beings to bring us to sanity.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, that in the past, in my lifetime, there have been some powerful, um, inspired people who had an impact on the way a lot of the population looked at problems and looked at big problems, and not having that now is really also part of the concern that I personally have, is that the idea of having people who are speaking words that make us think, that make us believe that things can get better and bring us to a higher place. Um, One of the things that I've noticed is um, the idea of, and more people talking about this, but the idea of um, the community, the safety of the community. And it could be through religion. It could be through, I mean, I think there are some religions that do a really good job at creating a moral high ground that people can aspire to and are giving people a sense of the good that can be done, and that, that it isn't just about getting, but it's about giving, and that's so important. And I sense that more and more people are looking for that community. And some people are doing it through religion. Some people are doing it, in other ways. But I think that being alone with this is not a safe place, but being in a community where there is, um, a, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of what's good and what can be done to make people feel good, whether it's for the people that have and have not, or the 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 difficulty of a situation and what can be done for it. But I'm not sure that that's enough right now without having those very strong leaders. And they don't have to be political leaders either. I mean, everything ends up in politics, but I mean, who do you think have been some of the most inspired leaders of the last century or 2 centuries?
Who do I think
Yeah.
are the most inspired leaders? You know, many names, as you were just talking about it, you know, the likes of Mahatma Gandhi, who basically brought a big empire on its knees through nonviolence and truth and
Mm,
peace message. Uh, uh, Martin Luther King Jr., Abraham Lincoln. Um, uh, you know, I would say Mother Teresa was a leader. I would say Marie Curie, who I visited recently. I was at the Pantheon, and that was the most special part of the
mm,
visit, to be standing by her side. Um, uh, I think about, who else do I think about amongst uh, altruistic leaders who I trust? Uh, I like Jacinda Ardern also. Uh, uh, I uh, I don't want to get, you know, too political there. It's much easier to talk about people who have passed away than people who are alive, because, you know, sometimes when I talked about people who are still around, you know, suddenly you find them caught in a Me Too movement, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't put this person in my
yeah.
book. You
Well,
know?
but you see, there you are. It's again, um, it's an opinion that you have about a human being who achieves something. And nobody is perfect in this life. And it's just not going to happen. And even some of the people, I remember in my childhood knowing and hearing Martin Luther King speak, that knowing that that was the voice I could hear. Gandhi, to me, was like, whoa, this human being that he was communicating and alive in my lifetime and had an influence on what could be possible, right? As a young person growing up. Those were, and even, JFK, the energy of a young, man from a completely different perspective as the president of the United States, representing this new way to look at the world. Well, nobody's perfect, right? None of them are perfect, but that's what being a human being is. You're an imperfect being, hopefully trying to be more perfect and learning from your mistakes. But to believe that everybody's perfect, and for anybody to criticize someone who is not perfect, they would have to believe that they were. And that in itself has a lot of issues, right? That in itself, you wonder what human being is perfect that they can criticize another human being. And the mistakes maybe can be very painful for other people, but it still takes a sense of self that needs evaluating. I mean, you need to think about what have you done? And maybe this human being did some very good things in their lives, and we're grateful for them, but they were not perfect. And to expect that they were is very naive, to say the least, and not really fully giving people the space to be human beings. It's a big judgment call to make for another human being. But I will say, I remember my mother made it a very important thing for us to be educated, but to make sure we knew these voices and that we heard these voices. And I still think about them. I have Martin Luther King's writings on the entrance of my apartment, because I feel that some of the words he said, some of the things Gandhi said, I remember Mother Teresa, and I'm not sure if it still exists in India. She had these convents for deaf girls and blind girls, two separate ones. Some would do weaving and some would do embroidery. And I was working with the ones that did embroidery to have little shirts made so that the money could go back to the girls. And I think about a human being like that who was just unbelievable. I mean, to put her life's effort to giving, that the get back that she got in her lifetime, who could match that, right? She gave so much that what she got back, we can't even measure, right? It's just something, a higher level, a higher decibel of enlightenment and on a level that only she can really understand. And I think the ability to do that and to be so generous in spirit is something we have to learn and we have to try to understand. Is there any belief system or any practice or anything that you've seen people use to kind of let them kind of open to listen, to be more tolerant, almost as a tool? We know we all have to do that, but almost as a tool. Is there anything that you've witnessed?
Yeah. So I think two people whose name we did not mention was Buddha and Jesus Christ, because I think
Yes.
they were absolutely phenomenal in the wisdom and love that they shared with the world, and they have had more impact on the planet than anybody else that I can think of. When it comes to so where do we so practice, and where do we go from here? How do we find that healing? So one thing I have realized is, Norma, that uh, educating or inspiring people. So we are at that phase in our journey, collective journey, where educating or inspiring people to be altruistic to others is not going to cut it. People,
Right.
and I'm not being cynical,
No.
are just that's not going to help, because people are just very depleted.
Mm,
People are. How do you share a small glass of water when you are very thirsty yourself, and your kids are thirsty, and so I think a better path to me is through enhancing self compassion, through enhancing connection with the self, through enhancing self worth, a sense of worthiness, through enhancing self acceptance and self forgiveness. Because right now, guilt, shame, self loathing, that is epidemic. Now, if you hurt a dog or hurt a child or do something, there's a part of you that feels the pain, even though you may cover it up. And over a period of time, and I've seen this enough number of times now, where when you remind people of their inner purity, that they have covered with whatever delusion that has been created either for them or by them, then when they become aware of that inner purity, that inner potential, then they cry, and they wake up and they say, oh my gosh, what was I doing? And that is the way to healing, that is the way to transformation, not trying to educate or inspire people. So most of what I've been doing now is to help people remember how wonderful they are. So I remember there's a story. I don't know if this is true or not. There was a tribe where whoever does something bad, whether it is stealing or hurting someone, they will have that person sit in the corner, in the center of the village, and everybody will go around telling them how wonderful they are, so that would transform them, not punishing them for anything. So the specific practice that I personally use, uh, looking at, considering that background which I just shared with you, is I assume that, and this gets a little bit more spiritual, but I assume that everybody has a deep, pure spirit, an authenticity, a place of peace, a place of wisdom, a place of unbound, unlimited compassion. Everybody has that core. Now, that core is not manifesting sometimes, but when I meet people, I talk to that core. That core may not listen to me now, what sometimes, but it does more often than not. And what it does for me is that, one, I don't judge others. Two, I don't get upset with their anger, because I just have compassion for their anger, because, oh, you don't know how wonderful you are. You're like a diamond that has that pieces that thinks like it is a piece of coal. You have no idea. And so more often than not, that connection then really transforms and becomes, we become friends instead of being on two separate sides of the aisle. So I think that practice of assuming everybody is pure deep inside, yet everybody's struggling, and that practice translates into everyday, a simple greeting, which is, I wish you well. When you look at people you disagree with, people you may find annoying, just silently bless them,
mm,
because you know that they are pure inside. So that practice has really taken away my anger, my getting upset, my judgments, and I think, when you were a kid, you said your parents prioritize education, and I'm really not judging them here or my parents, but no parent ever teaches their kids how to look at other people.
Mm,
We say how to talk, how to walk, how to eat, how to bike, how to
yeah.
swim, but I think that is the most important practice, where you look at other people with compassion. You look at other people, however wrong they may be, with admiration, where you do not take away eyes from a homeless person just because you're avoiding them. You smile and you silently bless them. Now, what happens is when you do that all day long, the my guru is planet Earth. So look at planet Earth. Planet Earth is sitting in the vastness of space. It's cold, dark, lifeless space. But what has planet Earth done? It keeps a little atmosphere. And that atmosphere around planet Earth that she takes with her all along as she travels the solar system, that atmosphere nurtures life. So you, Norma, I, Amit, we carry our little atmosphere, our little positivity wherever we go, little love, little kindness, little compassion, and we try to just share that. Uh, who knows? It might inspire more people. As we say, kindness travels to 3 degrees of separation, and uh, it will take time for the world to sort of be at a point where everybody's a sage. But I think stay tuned and stay patient and stay loving.
You know, one of the things that I think about sort of again as tools for um, for just a community or unity is whenever I'm in the Middle East. I might have told you this before. Um, I was brought up Christian. My mother is a Maronite Christian, which is early Christian, and she married a Jew in her second marriage. So I had a kind of an understanding of a different way to be part of another kind of community. Uh, and then I married a Muslim. And so I really had the full experience of the different kinds of communities that each religion has in the of the three. And when I'm in the Middle East, the call to prayer is so profoundly moving to me. I am so taken by the quiet, um, that moment where if there's a meeting or whatever's going on, everything stops. People leave the room or they go to a place in the room and they pray, and then they come back to work, and it's just the way it is. And I think just by stopping 5 times a day for a breath, I mean, whether you pray or not, but just to take a breath and have a kind thought or no thoughts, or just stop, how incredible that is. Um, Even to the point of having that once a day. I mean, I think it's New York at 12 noon every day for a minute, just a minute. Everybody had to stop 1 minute, and we all do it together. We are now part of a community that have shared that minute together, and how incredible that is. And so even the sound of the call to prayer, the sound of it is so beautiful, that it makes you feel a certain way. Or if you're in a synagogue and you hear just the sound of the voices and the chants and the feeling of community in a synagogue. And one of my favorite was of all time was in the south of India, which was Madras at that time. being in those incredible temples of community where people go to gather, they go to be together, they eat together, they spend the day visiting different gods and different symbols of things in their lives. And that community in all of those, and there are so many, right? That whatever they are, it doesn't matter. It's that something is bringing people together, making them feel safe in that place, and giving them the chance to stop for a minute and just stop and just think. But sharing that with a lot of people is really so extraordinary. And I think if we could only figure out a way to do that just in the city, we don't have to go time zones. We can just a city at a time. How amazing would New York be? I mean, it would just be incredible. We're all walking together on the street. We're bumping into each other. We're all together. And the idea of everybody stopping for a minute and you're surrounded by people from all over the world, you're not going to be next to another New Yorker. There's only 6 of us. You're going to be around so many people. And the idea of that is so exciting to me that I feel like if we could have community at a time when we're so divided, even little communities, just to more and more of it. I think it's happening. Do you think it's happening just automatically?
It is to some extent, because I think we are a social and a compassionate species. We are a spiritual species, and uh, uh, we have to take care of our babies. That's why we have to be compassionate. And negative emotions such as anger and fear are very energy intensive. So uh, we would die if we did not have these positive emotions of love and kindness and prayer. The 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 only challenge is that we are not inclusive enough. We are creating exclusive communities. We're still the first class of Titanic passengers who are not letting the third class people, you know, come on
Mm-hmm.
the boats when, and so the key to compassion is to remove exclusions to compassion. We all have a compassionate core, just as if you prick a pin in your hand, it's going to hurt because you've got pain receptors in your brain. So if you're a human, then you have compassion in your brain, no doubt.
Right.
You are compassionate towards somebody. That somebody could be just you. But in expanding diameters, as you grow, your zone of compassion expands. I'm only compassionate to people who work for me. That's a small.
Right.
I'm
Right.
compassionate to people who are live in my neighborhood, in my city, who are part of my faith, my church. So the more we create those silos, the more we rub against
Yeah.
each. So at least in the privacy of our mind, I think the more inclusive we can be with extending our compassion, the better. And that is going to actually come back and help us more than anything.
Mm.
If you uh, if I want my kid to be happy, the only way my kid can be happy is if your kid is happy
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
because they're going to be working with each other and they will affect each other. So I think it, I think it's going to take time before we collectively sort of rise to that. And I think the whole idea of egalitarian society where everybody is equal, uh, uh, and that perception or that belief or that awareness that everybody is equal will come from us recognizing that everybody is infinitely precious, which is everybody has that core and that belief. I so wish I was just fantasizing the other day. I'm writing a new book on relationships, and I was fantasizing that if you go and get a scan, you call your self scan. So this scan comes back and says, Norma, your compassion is up 38% on the self scan. The blue thing, that area of fear is still you have to work on. And
It's
this
just
just is
like
all
the ring. It's just like a tracking ring, right?
right,
Where you get your, that's a, that's what you need to do. We need to come up with a tracker
right.
on your compassion and
Yeah, exactly.
tracking your, yes, I can,
Exactly. That'll be interesting. I mean, science is going to be helping us a lot, I
yep,
think, in our journey. But science again, not in the service of backdating options or buying another island, or the fourth private jet, but
yeah,
science that again is egalitarian, science that um,
yeah.
lifts all of us.
Right. Healthcare for everyone. AI could have an incredible force in speeding up discoveries in medicine, but also making the best kind of medicine for everyone. It's a reality with AI. It's actually a reality that that everyone can have good health care. That to me is
Yeah.
one of the great concepts of AI, and there are many fears and many apprehensions, but how incredible would that be if that could be, which it can
Yep.
be, which it can be. There are examples of it that are coming and that are visible now. One of the things um, I was I remember working for almost 20 years in the public school system. I'm a public school graduate, and my mother didn't have the money to afford to send me to any special schools, but she did instill in me that I better get a scholarship so I could go on from there. So my brother and I worked very hard. Um, and then I went back to my high school, and because I knew that the people in the high school were just like me and they didn't have a level playing field, that it just didn't exist for them. And I learned that and then none of them really cared about what I had to say or had any interest in me. They were talking when I was talking in the classroom, and I thought I have to gain their trust because they don't trust anybody and they have a right not to trust people. So I had to work very hard at getting their trust. And then when I finally did, one of the things I learned was that the more confidence I had that somebody had talent and that they could do something with that, the more I convinced them, they actually showed it. They actually performed that way. They actually could do it. Now, it didn't happen with everyone because some of the early childhood experiences were not good and they got in the way of it, even though there was an effort to make it happen. But I think when you work from the positive with people, you really find an interesting result, right? And even at work, if I'm not making sure that people understand that anybody that's here, I have confidence in them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have hired them, right? And that I believe they can do even more than they believe they can do. And sometimes I'm successful at it. And other times, obviously, I could have done a better job at convincing them. I think that there's some way that something like that can be a part of this process as well.
Well, you have from a emotional social perspective, your instincts are absolutely right. And what I have found is that one of the best ways to decrease the negative is to enhance the positive. So, if you are my colleague and I tell you something, let's say about your posture, which is negative, then you may not like it. But if I tell something, let's say about your hands or whatever, something unrelated that I praise, now you're open, because people don't like to be educated, they like to be validated. If you validate them, then they're
Oh
willing.
my goodness, that's so perfect. That really is a profound statement. I'm going to remember that one. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah, exactly. So I think if you validate people, then they open their heart to be educated, inspired, and people are thirsty for validation.
Mm,
I think so. So what I often share and I try is, uh, I'll spend all my life trying to get rid of my fear, my anger, my ego, my ignorance, my greed. Uh, I will not succeed. You know why? Because they are so deeply ingrained in my neural circuits. When I try to get rid of fear, I fear that if I lose fear, then I'll make myself vulnerable. When I try to get rid of greed or desire, I'm like, I'm going to become apathetic. If ego, I'll be trampled on. So my system fights. It's like getting rid of hunger. So, what I like to do is not get rid of fear, but enhance trust, enhance compassion, enhance kindness, enhance gratitude, enhance faith, enhance love. What happens is that in a room that has a lot of love, compassion, faith, kindness, fear automatically gets uncomfortable and anger becomes uncomfortable and exits the room.
mm,
So instead of decreasing the negative, I believe in enhancing the positive. The negative takes care of itself. The place
yeah.
is so crowded with the positive that negative isn't just there.
Going back a little bit to what you were saying about equality and sort of that level playing ground for everyone. And until that happens, there's always going to be this uncomfortable existence, right? And I think the reason we are challenged for that now more than ever is social media is really built on making people appear to be having more fun than everybody else, being better than everyone else, being prettier than everyone else, having having all the wonderful things, and and that's what it is. So anybody who is watching it is thinking, oh wow, or the idea of taking the best picture to show that you are having the best experience or eating the best dinner. Um, and I'm not sure where that's going to go, because young people are all, as many people as you can imagine that can become an influencer are becoming an influencer, because not only do you show that you're prettier and better dressed and have the best makeup and are doing the best things, but people are being paid a significant amount of money in a year for doing this for a living to promote other products. So there's this constant barrage of information coming at you when you look at social media, basically telling you you're not good enough. This person's having more fun. Their hair is better. They're having a better vacation than you can ever have. They go to more parties. Today, the Met Ball is happening, and look at all those people, and they're all so fabulous. And if you weren't invited, you have to stay on the opposite side of the street, and you have to be further away from where all of these fabulous people are coming. Yet there's a desire to have these events. There's a desire to display the artistry of dressing up or whatever the art form of fashion in a museum environment. So it's a very complicated time we live in, but it's very difficult for most of the population to be comfortable with what they see on social media. They're never going to dance good enough. I'm obsessed with workouts. So I look at all of these workouts. I'm obsessed with this thing called animal flow. And it's really challenging. It's very hard. And everybody, and mostly men, can do it. I look at them. I take photos of their videos. I look at them. I'm obsessed with it. And in some cases, it's inspirational. But then in other cases, you can't be pretty as someone else if you think they're pretty. And now people are going to get facelifts to look like, or injections to look like that person instead of looking like themselves. This is a complicated time, Dr. Sood. What are we going to do?
I think we will suffer a little bit,
Right.
and then we will recognize that the joy of compassion is much stronger than the joy of likes on social media. A real hug with my mom is more enjoyable than 100 friends, showing thumbs up on a.
But tell a teenager that.
I know. We were teenagers too, and I think we were irrational, but they will grow out of it, as I see. And I think there's many very wise teenagers also. Kids these days is a known bias against the next generation. Actually, Socrates said 2000 some years ago, basically that the kids these days are spoiled. They don't listen to their parents. You would think like it is someone saying today. Right. So look at it, so there is this whole kids these days phenomena. I personally feel the kids are awesome. I think they are wiser than we were when we were their age. I think they will take the world at a beautiful place. I see a lot of, they absolutely know how to make good connections. You see a proportion of the population is going to be lost in those frivolous activities, but they will also eventually come around. And so I actually feel that my retirement, my Medicare and Social Security is secure with the next generation coming. Yeah. I do not worry about it. All I want to do is be a good role model. All I want to do is to live with values so that I can, in all my authenticity, tell them that, yes, I did this and I found this to be a good path. I think we will have to reach a point where we are complete in ourselves, where it doesn't matter if someone has a better lipstick. It doesn't matter if they are hanging out with a celebrity. You're just happy for them. And, but everybody has their own little pie. When you go to a restaurant, you don't see, okay, what does that table has? What does that, you just look at the menu, you order your food, you enjoy your food. Why am I looking at everybody's table and making myself miserable? So I think we will grow out of it eventually. I sometimes despise those entrepreneurs who are preying on our kids' minds at creating products that get them hooked and away from their real world. I saw a little girl walking on a railroad track with her head buried in her iPad. But I am seeing the kind of kids I see, because I teach a lot of some of these ideas to college students, and There is a proportion of them that we do not meet who are just amazing, and I think they will lead us into a better world.
Yeah. Well, we need them for sure. We have to talk about sleep. What do we do about sleep? These are the two common things. We did a little survey here today. So
Yeah. So
it
if
seems
we
that,
can,
yeah,
yeah. So if we can be a little brief about
yeah,
sleep, so that'll
yeah,
be good.
yeah. So there's the sleep where you, uh, people go to sleep very easily and then they wake up in the middle of the night and they can't go back to sleep. And then there's the can't go to sleep the minute they put their head on the pillow. It's probably, I have a feeling I know you're going to go somewhere with this. But what are your thoughts about sleep? Any tips, any information? What do we need to know?
Yeah, I think three things are needed for you to sleep. One is if you're feeling safe, two, you're feeling tired, and three, you're feeling bored. So I think if you have those three in combination, then it's like fire. You need heat, you need oxygen, you need fuel. Bring them together and fire just happens. You can't will a fire. You bring these two together, fire happens. Sleep is also the same. I think one of the big reasons we're not sleeping well is because we're not feeling safe, and we're not feeling emotionally safe. Now, if our meeting today was going to be you and I just fighting each other, then you and I both would not have slept well last night, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk to Norma and I don't know what she's going to say. Oh, and so because I was not emotionally safe. And by the way, when I say safe, it's not the physical body, even though that's important, very important. We're not, it's our emotional body that is not safe.
Mm.
I am trying to sleep and I'm worried about my loved ones halfway across the world. I'm worried about what's happening with the wars. I'm worrying about what's happening to the economy. And by the way, my stocks are down this much. What's going to happen this way? There's just so much happening in my head that I don't feel safe. So, your ability to shut down or at least close those windows. And sometimes I like to share, what do you do when you're catching a flight? Do you keep all your luggage on your head like this, or do you check it in? And you check it in. So your ability to check in your luggage. Now, if you say I won't have any luggage, that's deluding yourself. That's not going to happen until the last breath. You will have luggage. You will have a lot of baggage to carry.
Right.
It's your ability to check it in.
Yeah.
And part of that ability to check in comes from equanimity, where if we were going to meet each other and if I say, okay, if she's going to be upset, I know I'll be compassionate towards her, or whatever is going to happen today. That equanimity sometimes comes from faith, sometimes comes from just within yourself, sometimes comes from accepting the worst that could happen and letting it be. The second thing is tired. We are spending so much time now sedentary and 6-8 hours in front of screen post work, that our body is not agile. You go and work out in the at the gym for 30-45 minutes. That doesn't cut it. It's how active you are all day long. That's what matters. So a body that is tired, gets to sleep, better. Uh, Sometimes mind tired helps, but mind tired could also backfire if
Mm.
it has a lot of emotions. And so the third part is bored. So when you wake up and if you just go and check your email, because who knows what kind of virtual hug I got, or a virtual punch, and I want to know both. And so now I'm not bored. I'm excited. I'm awake. I'm angry. I'm upset. I need to respond, and then sleep is not going to come. So get yourself sleep tired and bored, and you will be able to sleep much better. Now there is a little bit about about deep breathing. Now, if you because there's a proportion of people who just can't sleep well. They have like you have genetic predisposition to high cholesterol. They have genetic predisposition to difficult sleep and or non-restorative sleep. So you can partly compensate that with, let's say, 10 minutes of deep breathing. So if I haven't slept well, if I didn't sleep well last night, before talking to you, if I can find that time, I will do 5 to 10 minutes of deep breathing. And so there have been many days, with young kids, if I couldn't sleep well, I'll see 2, 3 patients, 5, 7 minutes of deep breathing, 2, 3 patients, 5, 7 minutes of deep breathing. So, uh, so it doesn't make sense for you to take an anti-anxiety or sleeping pill along with Monster beverage at the same time. You know, what are you
Mm.
trying to do? Stimulate yourself or calm yourself? So, deep breathing, there's a biological basis to it because sleep is the time when the garbage trucks come and clear your brain of all the gunk that you have accumulated, your neurotransmitters, dead neurotransmitters, amyloid fibrils. A lot of this gunk accumulates in your brain. So, there are some channels called glymphatic channels that open up at night and your brain is cleared. If you don't sleep well, you wake up with a shaggy, dirty brain. Your neurons can't talk to each other. You feel tired. Now, one of the activities that can open the same channels and drain your gunk is deep breathing because it reduces your adrenaline in the brain. So that's what I do. I usually go to the bed with a thought of a group of people who I think are hurting. I'm compassionate towards because many times if I'm trying to sleep feeling incomplete, like I need to do this, I need to get that, when it's me, I don't get to sleep. But if I say, okay, as I'm sleeping, I'm going to start thinking about all the parents who are rushing to the ER right now because their kid is throwing up. And I'm going to pray, I'm going to send good energy to them wherever they are. And I sort of start saying, I hope they find their kid gets better. I hope they find peace. And suddenly, before I know, I have fallen asleep. Sometimes I carry a mantra. Sometimes I carry a prayer. I usually try to read something calming and relaxing or watch a short video, 5, 10 minutes, something that is spiritual, that tells me about good people, the kind of good people we have talked about. And that puts me into a nice place. Uh, uh, you know, uh, uh, we have you seen otters sleeping? Oh, you
Mm-mm.
got to watch this. Go on YouTube. Otters, it's
Otters, the
otter, sea otter. It's really cute.
OTT.
They hold their
Yeah.
hands when they're floating in the water, so they don't drift
No,
away.
no,
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh my
yeah, sea otter.
God.
Yeah, look at their
Oh my
video.
God.
Very,
That's
very
so
cute.
cool.
Yeah. So try to have, your spouse, your partner as your otter as you're sleeping at night. I think
Deeply. I know when I do deep breaths, I count my breaths, and I can tell when I get to 40, I can feel that, that place you go to. So when I hit 40, 41, 42, and then by 50, I'm in this really good place. But it takes to get to 40 patiently with good, deep, long breaths to get there and to just get all of the noise out, to just get calmed down again. Really, and it's helpful. Anyway, we look forward to your next visit. It's, they called you the happy doctor here.
I don't know. Yeah. Kind doctor, probably,
Kind and
I don't control
well,
what people say, but, happiness through kindness.
yes, I think that's probably what they meant. They are looking forward to hear what you have to say, and I really appreciate your time as always, and wishing you the best. And thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you,
Take
Norma. I
care.
would love
Okay.
to see your sea otter picture at some point. Yeah.